We have made it to the end of 2022, so it's time to stop and rank the 10 worst films that I've seen this year. My name is Max Denver. We're to a brand new ranking video here on Max Talks Movies. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe, ring the bell. I do movie reviews, TV show reviews, movie rankings, and box office breakdown show every single week. So please subscribe, ring the bell, comment down what are the 10 worst films that you have seen this year. I love to hear your list. And are some of mine on my list? Are they films that you like, that you also agree with weren't very good? Let me know in the comment section down below. And also, please like the video, guys. A thumbs up button. That helps support this channel. So this is going to be a long video because there's 10 movies I'll be talking about. So we're going to talk about the top 10 worst films of the year. I do want to give some honorable mentions. I'll give 3 honorable mentions that just missed outside my top 10. The Invitation, that was the 355. And Blonde just missed outside my top 10. So those are let's get into the top 10 worst films that I saw in 2022. Starting off at number 10 is Firestarter. This was I think the only film this year from Universal that was released both on Peacock and in theaters. I did see this in a movie theater during the summer. And it's gonna be a common theme here, which is a really bad movie from start to finish. It doesn't really know what it wants to be. Sometimes it wants to be this edgy superhero film. Sometimes it wants to be a coming of age film. Another wants to be a dark horror film. And all of these clashing could be a really good idea for a movie. But it doesn't all work because it just doesn't know what to do with its main character. It doesn't know if it wants to make a child a villain of a movie or a superhero. And I feel like if they kind of went down the villain path and even went rated R with the movie, it would have been a lot stronger. And I was about, if it didn't know it wanted to be an action film, this film desperately needed more action. There's really no action in the entire movie until really the last 10 minutes of the film. There's some good world building here, and it's good to see Zac Efron, who's the most notable actor in this film. But it's one of the most boring experiences I've had in a movie theater all year. And then when we actually got to the action scenes, they were good, but I think the film just didn't really know what it wanted to be from the start. Coming in number 9 is a Netflix original film. Very shocking for me for this to be on this list, and that is called The Bubble. This film came back all the way in the first half of 2022. This is a Judd Apatow film. If you're not familiar, Judd Apatow wrote, directed, produced this film. It's got an all-star cast, as you see: Karen Gillan, Fred Armisen, Maria Bakalova, Pedro Pascal, Keegan-Michael Key. All of this cast, as well as Iris Apatow or Leslie Mann. It's basically how they're shooting a movie during a pandemic. But they attempt to shoot a sequel while in quarantine, and things kind of start happening. This for me is one of the worst Judd Apatow films. It's so not funny. And this is also a very long film. It hits over 2 hours long, and the movie just isn't funny, and a comedy is over 2 hours long, and it can't really keep you energized. It just makes it a bad experience. It just seems like Judd Apatow didn't take that long to write the film. You get this all-star cast, and a lot of these people are great in other things. Karen Gillan, Pedro Pascal, Leslie Mann, Keegan-Michael Key, great actors. And they all have been funny in other things, but all of them just were not very funny in this film. And the whole TikTok stuff with Iris Apatow's character just really didn't work for me. So The Bubble comes in number 9. Let's go over to Hulu with number 8, and that is Deep Water. This had a lot of buzz for probably all the wrong reasons. Obviously, Ben Affleck and Ana de Armas, this film on Hulu. It's basically they are a couple, and it's kind of a loveless kind of marriage between the two of them. And, Armas's character keeps sleeping with other people, kissing other people in front of her husband. But maybe her husband has a dark secret overlooming the film. And this for me was, again, 2 great actors with great performances in Ana de Armas and Ben Affleck. I think the big problem with this movie is that the big overall story is involving Affleck's character is just so predictable, and it just makes it so there's no character in the film that you're rooting for. You're watching unlikable character after unlikable character, especially with these two. This is one of the worst scripts I've seen in Ana de Armas, say stuff, and in a long time. She's an excellent actress, and it's been one of those years for her with Blonde and this. But she's so unlikable from the moment she's on screen, and there's just no sense of any positivity in the film. And I'm cool with a pretty dark film, but there's just no one that you're emotionally invested in. And it just totally affects this film. And again, another boring film to add to the list. Let's go to number 7 with another Netflix film, and that is a comedy, another comedy with Me Time. As you can see, Kevin Hart and Mark Wahlberg. This is all about how, Mark Wahlberg has these elaborate birthday parties every year. His best friend, played by Kevin Hart, used to go to them, but once Kevin Hart became married, had kids, he kind of became a stay-at-home dad, and he finally has to go on this vacation with his former best friend, Mark Wahlberg. And again, 2 actors who I think have been hilarious in recent years just are not funny in this movie. And this is kind of where the stick between Wahlberg and Hart have just gotten old. You've seen this movie a billion times. You've seen these actors in this movie a billion times. And the film just isn't, again, funny. And it's a comedy, it's subjective, but I was just not really enjoying myself at all. And I like both actors. But when a comedy isn't working, it really isn't working. And for me, this one just really was not working. To number 6, the movie I saw in the movie theater, and that is Moonfall. Now, this is a film that has kind of been joked around as a fun, bad movie, and I just think it's a bad movie. It is this came out all the way back in February. It feels like a millennium ago that Moonfall came out, so I don't remember all the details. But this was a truly awful film with probably some of the worst dialogue I've seen in a movie all year long. The big third act plot twist fell out of the blue and didn't make any sense. And I think there's not good CGI, but the delivery of dialogue, the characters you just don't care about at all. It's good to see Halle Berry and Patrick Wilson in this film, but you just don't care about anything going on in the film. And then there's some awful dialogue delivered, and there's a subplot involving these main characters' kids trying to save them, and that also just took me out of the film. So I know some people had a fun, bad time watching this film, but for me, it's just bad, not fun at all. Goes into the bottom 5 films I've seen this year, and it's from Disney with a Disney Plus film, Pinocchio. Their version of Pinocchio, the remake of their animated classic, was awful in my opinion. Robert Zemeckis, Tom Hanks, you had Alvin Silvestri, you had all the pieces of a great live action remake. I think this is one of the worst live action remakes that Disney has done. I think Tom Hanks is totally miscast as Geppetto. He gives it his all, but he's definitely miscast in this film. And the creepy CGI, this creepy effects that Zemeckis has brought from Polar Express and Welcome to Marwen, he brings here in one of the weirdest movies of the year when you talk about visual effects, because you have aspects of live action, you have aspects of stop motion animation, you have aspects of CGI, you have aspects of visual effects, and they all just don't blend together whatsoever. Even Geppetto's cat is like not even a real cat. It's just odd to look at. The stuff that they add and subtract from the original film all don't really work in the film, and they waste a great talent in Cynthia Erivo in this movie. I mean, she gets literally as the Blue Fairy, she gets one scene and then she kind of forget about her. There are characters that pop in that the movie wants you to forget about, and then it's like, you got to remember this character needs a satisfying conclusion. I just feel like for me, the emotional part of this movie did not work, and the creepy CGI blended to it. We're going to talk about the other Pinocchio when we get to the top of the year. Just want to spoil that for you, because boy, was this an embarrassment, especially when Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio hit Netflix. And number 4 is Morbius. I think this is one of the most annoyed experiences I've had watching a Marvel movie, I think, since The Amazing Spider-Man 2. This is a really bad film. I'm not a huge fan of Jared Leto in the first place. Did not bring me back to Jared Leto. I know some people, again, had fun with kind of the vampire horror element of the Sony Spider-Man universe, but so much of what they're adding in just doesn't make a lot of sense. It feels like they had a Morbius movie, and then Sony last minute said, we need to make this into the Spider-Man situation. And every time they force feed this character into the Spider-Man universe, nothing makes sense. It is the worst 2 post-credit scenes I've ever seen in a movie. Matt Smith is not that entertaining, and his chemistry with Jared Leto isn't great. So and you can't really tell. The movie doesn't even know if they're going to make Jared Leto a good guy at the end of the movie or a bad guy at the end of the movie. It has no idea what direction to go with. The only saving grace is Adria Arjona, who's excellent in the film. Also, again, Tyrese Gibson wasn't very funny. So for me, again, really bad dialogue, and this feels like a early 2000 superhero film gone wrong, in my opinion. Unlike the first Venom, which is not a good movie, but at least it has some fun elements to it. This was not a fun experience for sure. Number 3, another Disney Plus original with Ice Age: The Adventures of Buckwild. This is one of the most interesting experiences I've ever had. Again, I grew up with the Ice Age franchise. Just wanted to check it out. Buckwild, the only returning cast member from the original cast, was Simon Pegg back as Buckwild, and it's one of the weirdest experiences. It feels like one of those cheaply made sequels I've ever seen. Other than Simon Pegg, all of the original cast is gone, including Ray Romano, Queen Latifah, Dennis Lee. They're all gone. The CGI even works worse than it did in 2002. And the story itself, it feels like this movie should have been a short film, like maybe a 20-minute, 15-minute short film. And it feels like they pad the runtime to 82 minutes, by the way, an hour and like 22 minutes with credits. It also feels too long. And I don't think I've ever said that about a film under 90 minutes, that the film is too long. I think if this would have been a short film with just Buckwild and this adventure, this could have been a really good short film. Because they want to make this a feature-length film, they kind of cheap out on the animation and they cheap out on the voice cast, causes me just not a great experience, because I like this franchise, but this is where the franchise has kind of gone completely downhill. At number 2 is a Peacock original film, They, Them. This, again, could have been a genius idea for a horror film. The fact that these are campers going to a LGBTQ conversion camp, and that is already itself a horrifying thing. I think that's talked about a lot, these gay conversion camps, these LGBTQ conversion camps. That itself, I think, could really work for a horror film. And while there's elements to that in this movie, there's also Kevin Bacon running the camp, who's very entertaining in the film, but it kind of goes for a slasher film, a jump scare film, and that's just not what this movie should have been. I think the horrors of these kids having to go through this conversion camp sells the movie in itself, but instead it wants to be this slasher horror film with big violent kills, and it just sucks the air out of the movie. And that's supposed to be a fun element of the film. But I think if the film just stuck to its emotional residence, which is this conversion camp, that's a horror movie. Instead of, it wants to do twists and turns with characters, and it wants to do big violent kills. And for me, those two things just don't intersect. But talk about intersect, my number 1 film, the worst film I saw this year, is a Netflix original film called The Interceptor. Just Interceptor, with Elsa Pataki and Luke Bracey. Easily was the worst film I saw of the year. When I saw it, it has stayed at that point all year long. It's about a U.S. Army captain played by Pataki, who uses her years of tactical training to save humanity from 16 nuclear missiles launched at the U.S., and this is the worst dialogue I have seen in a movie all year. The performances are god-awful, and the action scenes are shot so weird. I think that the hand-to-hand combat, the stunt work is excellent. You can tell that Pataki and Bracey embrace doing these action scenes, but they're shot in such a way that you really can't see what is going on. You don't feel any stakes to what's going on, even though there's supposed to be 16 nuclear missiles being launched at the United States. And the film is so boring. For most of the film, we're just at a standoff between Pataki and Bracey, where they're just going back and forth in dialogue. and it's so boring. And you just want to get to the action scenes, and then when you get to the action scenes, they're not very good because you can't see anything that is going on. There's really no emotional impact I had with this film. So for me, I know this might come as a shock to people, but Interceptor is the worst film I saw this year. That's my breakdown of the top 10 worst films I've seen this year. Coming the next 2 days, I'm going to do my top 20 ranking. I've seen that many good movies this year. So tomorrow I'll do my top 20 through 11 films of the year. And then Friday, my top 10 through 1 films of the year. So stay tuned for that list. So subscribe, ring the bell, and I'll see you guys soon.